I've been processing object permanence and emotional permanence. I've been seeing through my own bullshit and processing some pretty embarrassing stuff, really looking at subconscious patterns that are playing out, and it feels gross and embarrassing. And it feels like I'm just scratching the surface. It feels like I've never really connected with anyone or related to anyone in an authentic way because I don't know how. There's a lot there. Seeing object permanence issues and emotional permanence issues is just the beginning of understanding why I don't have real connections. To be fair, most people don't. They think they do, but there's so much projection going on that real connection is impossible. The projection and the narrative and the image making gets in the way of authentically connecting with another person, if that's even possible. We make images of ourselves, we make images of the other person, and we make subjective interpretations of the interactions of those projections. So it's a lot of fiction interacting with fiction. And it's really common to create images of people and then use those images to play out unconscious dynamics. We're playing out our own unconscious bullshit with other people. We're projecting a fiction of ourselves and what we're perceiving is a fiction because we're projecting the image of the other person. So how can there be real connection if that's what most of us are doing all of the time? We learn to do this because this is the way. This is what people do. It's very normalized, but it's not real connection. And I have no idea what I'm talking about because I don't know if real connection is actually a real thing. I want to give myself grace and forgiveness for having these patterns because it is so normal and almost everyone is doing it. But I also want to hold myself to a higher standard. So I see some patterns that I find embarrassing. I think they're gross and I don't want to beat myself up about it, but I want to make corrections and I want to try to be more real moving forward, but the patterns are so entrenched and also everyone else around me is playing out these patterns. So I think it's a pretty big task and I feel like I'm just scratching the surface of this. So something I noticed that I've been curious about and I've been processing for a while is that I prefer audio messages. In-person interactions are great and they happen some in my life, but I have a lot of online interactions. And I've noticed that I prefer audio over text, videos even better. It's pretty clear why I would prefer this because if someone is reaching out to me for me to listen to them and reflect back to them, I need visual cues and audio cues in order to read the NF, to really understand what they're saying. Because people will say one thing, but the tone of their voice will indicate something else, or their body language will indicate something else. So that's pretty clear. It's pretty useful. If someone is reaching out to me for help or support or reflection, it makes sense that I would like that additional information. But I noticed that I also prefer audio, even if it's a basic transaction, really basic practical communication. Hey, here's this file. Do XYZ task with this file. And when you're done, email so-and-so. It's a really basic, practical communication, but I prefer audio even in those instances. So then it's not about me reading the other person's NF so that I can reflect back to them. I notice that it's about me needing reassurance. And it's pretty embarrassing, but I've only recently noticed how much reassurance I need. I was always needing reassurance. I just didn't notice that because I have this idea of myself that I don't need reassurance. I'm an island. I'm fine. I'm perfectly fine. I don't need reassurance from anyone, but I actually do need reassurance. And I feel like maybe I need it more than what's reasonable. So sometimes when I get a text message, it can feel kind of cold. And I have really irrational thoughts because I'm not sure if the person likes me. I might think they don't like me. We're not friends. But if I hear a voice, then I think we're cool. We're still friends. This is a friendly person. This person exists. They're alive and they're safe and things are good between us because I can hear their voice and they sound friendly and they sound okay. This strikes me as very neurotic and somewhat decidery, but I think it has more to do with some arrested development in childhood or abandonment trauma. Because the whole time that I'm feeling these things, rationally I'm double deciding. But no matter how rational I am, the feeling is still there. The feeling is still real. The feeling of insecurity and neediness. My rational mind is grown up. but the part of me that is capable of feeling abandoned is a child, and you can't reason with a child. So I remembered the concept of object permanence, and I was doing some research about that, and that led me to emotional permanence. And I think that I have issues with both. Object permanence is when you know that an object or a person exists even when they're not in the room. And babies start to understand this at 4 to 8 months old. They usually have a fully developed sense of object permanence by the time they're 2 years old. This is why peekaboo is so much fun for babies. You put your hands over your face, they can't see you, and they think you disappeared. The little idiots fall for it every time. Or dad goes to work. He's completely gone. He's not here. He doesn't exist. Emotional permanence is related to object permanence. It's the understanding that you are loved even if the person who loves you is not right in front of you expressing that love in the moment. So I have these issues not to an extreme degree, but they are there. And that's what I'm seeing. Those are the parts of myself that feel really childish and gross, and I find a little embarrassing. So if I get a ping back of approval and friendliness, I feel safe. And I also know that the other person is okay and they are safe. When I get a little hit of that approval, then I know we're friends. We're good. It's okay. Everything is good between us. But if I don't get a hit of that for a few hours or a few days, depends on the circumstance, then I start to feel insecure all over again. There's no emotional permanence. This person is a friend, they care about me, but I can't see them, I can't hear them, I don't know where they are, and so all those good feelings no longer exist. Even though I'm a grown-up smart person and I'm trying to rationalize with myself. My rational mind is not congruent with what I'm feeling. Then I might subtly reject the other person. I will flatten them and compartmentalize them and subtly reject them so that I feel like I'm in control again. I don't need them anyway. I'm fine on my own. And there's an irrational, childish fear that they are being inconsistent. They are hot and cold. They like me, then they don't like me. But usually, they aren't inconsistent at all. I'm inconsistent. My perception is inconsistent. I have a distorted perception of emotional permanence. Another reason that I subtly reject them is out of love. It's because I care about them that I subtly reject them. Because I know that there is something off about my neediness. Neediness is not loving. If you care about someone, you don't give them your neediness. So the childish part of me feels needy, but the adult part of me feels like it's unloving and disrespectful to inflict that neediness onto someone else. So my rejection of them is an overcorrection. I reject them to let them off the hook. Like saying, sorry I was needy. That's gross and wrong and not loving. Actually, I don't need you at all. You're free to go. So for sure, it is okay to need people a little bit some of the time. And it's okay to accept help from a friend or to have a healthy co-regulation or a healthy interdependence. But it's not okay to be a black hole of irrational neediness. And there's something in my masculine DI that tells me I am not allowed to need other people. I am not allowed to refer to an outside authority. So I've been mostly talking about emotional permanence, but going back to the object permanence, another issue that I have is that I'm really not okay if I don't know that someone else is okay. So I can see a person and know that they're okay and know that we're friends, and then 3 hours later, they're gone. I can't see them. So I think they're either dead or they don't like me, or both. And this only happens with men, which is even more embarrassing. And it's not all men. It's just specific men. I can't put my finger on it. They vibrate at some divine masculine frequency, some specific signature. Yeah, I don't know. It's not random, but I can't describe what it is. It's probably father energy. It never happens with women because I don't need the approval of women the way that I need the approval of men. And this is just so embarrassing to me. I like women. It's cool to share with them and learn from them, but I just don't ever feel needy about their approval. I also don't ever feel closely bonded to them. I'm not sure if there's some reason that this whole process was arrested when I was super young, like an infant and a toddler, or if it was the big traumatic event of my father dying when I was 8. So theoretically, I should have been solid on these things. I should have been solid on object permanence and emotional permanence if everything was fine when I was an infant. And I think it was, but you don't know. The psyche is very delicate. Even the most emotionally mature, attentive parents can do some little thing that disrupts some of this development, and that's just the way it goes. It has nothing to do with neglect. It's just that the psyche is delicate when it's being formed. So even though I'm a grown-ass adult, I sometimes play this dynamic out in social interactions in ways that I feel is more dramatic than what is appropriate for the social situation. So in real life, what happened was Daddy came home. He loves me. Daddy went to work. He's not here. He came home again. He loves me. He went away. He came home. He went away, and he never came home. And I never saw him again. His awayness is a permanent situation. And that's the way this approval dynamic feels. When I get approval and friendliness, it feels like the sun is shining on me. It feels like Daddy came home from work and he's really happy to see me. But then when I can't see a person or hear from a person, I think possibly they're dead or they don't like me, or both. Even though my rational mind tells me this is crazy. And it is crazy. I'm kind of crazy. But at least I see it. And when it comes up again, hopefully I'll have enough consciousness to notice it and change the pattern. To just bring consciousness and awareness to it. I think it's a pretty entrenched pattern. So it's not like I'm just going to understand this and figure it out, make an embarrassing video about it on YouTube, and then the problem's going to go away and it's never going to happen again. But awareness is always the beginning of change. That's all I got.